this one's gonna be I don't even know, another controversial hot take. I don't know. Just banging them out. Why not? This one comes on the light of, or on the heels of, a school shooting in the States. Oh, geez, I can't remember the state. Colorado, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, this one stood out to me because it was a sixth grade girl brought a handgun to school and shot, I think, two classmates and a teacher, or two teachers and a classmate, something like that. Nobody died, thankfully, but it stood out because of how far from the norm the shooter stood. It's a female school shooter, which is already the low end of, in terms of percentages. I don't know the numbers offhand, but I'm sure it's probably single digit percentages. I can't think of any other female school shooters, to be honest. So that already is an anomaly. And then sixth grader, which is, what are they, 12, 10, 11? Regardless, that's like, you're not even in high school, you're not even in middle school, and you're bringing a gun to school and shooting your classmates. So this all sort of brought some stuff to light, some ideas or thoughts, or I don't know. I mean, I'm not, first off, not an American, so I don't live in the United States, but I am advocate of freedom and an advocate for complete human liberty, complete human freedom on the grounds of being human. So it doesn't matter if you're fucking American or not. You're entitled to freedom like everybody else. Anyway, so I was struck. I brought up a point of discussion in an online forum that this just highlights how these incidents, school shootings, are so much a problem with society, or they are a symptom of a very, very sick society, a very, very damaged and broken society. And it is not an issue of access to firearms. And that's the problem that both the left and the right seem to have around these issues, is the left seems to think if we just got rid of all the guns, all of this would go away. And the right seems to think that these issues are overblown in order to get rid of all the guns, and that it's an issue with family and fucking Christianity and religion. They took religion out of the schools and now there's shootings. So that's the fucking extremes on both ends, and they're both wrong. It's not about guns, and it's not about religion, and it's not about any of those sort of easy to look at factors. It's about a fundamentally ill society that produces these people, these broken individuals, and the gun is just the easiest tool. That's all it is. If it wasn't a gun, it would be a car, or it would be a bomb, or it would be a knife, or a hammer, or weaponized anthrax, or these people would go all the way to university and get a PhD and develop a highly contagious super flu that they would unleash upon the world in their deranged suicidal madness. Or they become pilots and they crash their planes into the side of a mountain and take everybody with them. Or they go off and join a cult or a terrorist group or whatever. Like, there's always going to be these, or not always, when you have a sick society, there's always going to be these individuals that are just deranged, for lack of a better word, deranged. And they are made into these monsters. They are not born this way. The number of people born with this monstrous drive or this monstrous tendency is infinitesimal. It's small. Psychopathy and sociopathy is a very, very limited diagnosis, and it's very small, and it's not something that really presents in a spree killing kind of way. Spree killers are generally people that just snap, that are pushed one way or another to some extreme through bullying in the instance of school shooters, or through feeling like an outsider, or feeling unaccepted or unloved or unwelcomed by society, or like a failure or depression or drug abuse or mental illness or brain tumors sometimes. Like there's always something wrong, but that something is always curable, I think, is the main thing we need to look at with spree shooters and school shooters and mass shooters, is that the issue comes down to something that can be solved, except it's not easy. It's not as easy as getting rid of all the guns, because that doesn't stop shootings. Maybe 100 years ago, you could have stopped the spread of firearms and everything else. But at this point, the cat's out of the bag. I mean, there's no putting it back in. Guns are out there. They're not going anywhere. And the only way to get rid of them all, especially in the United States, would cause a civil war. You would literally start a civil war, because you'd have to go house to house, and you'd have to go searching everyone's belongings and institute massive tyranny and massive surveillance and all of these things. And that's the only way you can get rid of them in the United States. Other countries, similar issues. Or you're going to have mass noncompliance, and it's not going to solve anything. So realistically, yeah, I mean, the cat's out of the bag. Like, there's no putting it back in. Yeah, you can make guns harder to get, but people are still going to get them. And people that are sufficiently deranged are still going to find a way to access these tools to commit these atrocities. And if it's involves them getting them illegally, then that's the case. Or now you can 3D print guns, and they're not the greatest, but every single day they get better. And every single day the 3D printed firearm community improves these files and makes these things more and more reliable, to the point where eventually, probably 5-10 years, a sufficiently motivated person could 3D print a comparable firearm to what's out there. You know, you can't stop the message. Like, it's already gone. The trains left the station here. There's no putting it back in. There's no reversing it. It's too late. The guns are out there. So how do we address the issue then? It's not just about banning guns. That's a disservice to the victims. It's about fixing the cause, fixing the roots that create these monsters, the tainted soil that grows these people that are capable of committing such atrocities. And it's not easy, and that's why it doesn't get done. There's obviously no political will to do it, because it's difficult, and because you're going to alienate your base on both sides, right? Everybody's so fucking tied up in their left-right party politics that nobody can see the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is society's sick and society is dying. And these are the symptoms of that. These are the free radical cancer cells that are flying through the body of society and exploding into chaos and violence. And whether or not you get rid of the guns, they're going to exist, especially if you don't start fixing the issue. So how do you fix the issue? Well, It just comes down to addressing the problems that are out there. So addressing poverty, addressing systemic racism, addressing lack of access to mental health care, and mental health care being treated as a um, luxury service, addressing broken homes, addressing violence in the culture and the media, addressing existing power structures that make these people feel powerless, addressing sort of the fundamental broken core of the whole system. And it's not just about schools and kids getting bullied, it's about the guys at the FedEx office a couple weeks ago that shot up their fellow employees. These are disenfranchised people that have nothing to live for and see no way out besides a terrible, useless 9 to 5 existence. And they just snap because there's nothing, no purpose anymore. There's nothing that gives life meaning anymore. And it used to be that you would find meaning in your community and you would find meaning in your family. And yes, you would find meaning in your church. Um, but slowly over time, these things have been eroded. And I'm not saying we need to go back to like nuclear family, 1950s, we're all going to church every Sunday lifestyle, but we need to go back to a community based lifestyle where we all support one another and we talk to one another and we treat one another as human beings and as treat people with kindness and compassion and not derision and not letting people fall through the cracks or not telling people that it's their fault that they are where they are or that they should have made better life choices or whatever. Like, it's about solving for these broken people. And how do you unbreak people? Well, you have to unbreak society. So I don't have the answers. I mean, obviously I'm not a fucking genius. I'm a fucking dumbass in a chair. I don't claim to know every answer, but I do know that the gut reaction or the gut solution of banning all the guns or I don't know, giving everybody Prozac or something isn't the cure. It's addressing these fundamental issues that form the core of this crumbling society we live in. I mean, everywhere you look, it's falling apart. And getting rid of guns isn't going to fix that. And if anything, it'll make it worse because guns are, or I shouldn't say guns, civilian owned firearms are the single largest insurance policy against government tyranny. And anyone who thinks differently need look only at history and only at China today and every other dictatorship today. And the one common factor is that the people living under these dictators do not own or have access to firearms, do not have access to the means of defense against the dictator. You look at Hong Kong, you look at the Hong Kong protests. You had an entire city rioting in the streets, fighting with police to fight back against tyranny being imposed on them from China. And the international community stood by and wagged their finger, but no one stepped in to help. And for months, these people fought in the streets with all the tools they had, and it wasn't enough. You know, they got, yeah, coronavirus came and that fucked things up, but they got swept under the rug, and everything moved through, and people got arrested and disappeared and never heard from again, and China just took another step toward tyrannizing Hong Kong, the last sort of like free little part. And there's nothing people could do because they're all disarmed. If even 10% of those protesters had taken up arms and had access to guns and were able to take up arms, I imagine that would have gone down entirely differently. Whether or not it would have been good is debatable. I mean, is it better to live in peaceful slavery than in dangerous freedom? I guess is the best answer there. Like, you would have seen probably just civil war and chaos and bloodshed, and it would have been awful, but at least people would go down putting up a fight against, or a reasonable fight against tyranny, and not just getting bulldozed by the state. And you saw it happen in Hong Kong, and everybody just kind of forgot. You see it happen. You're seeing it happen in Myanmar now with the military coup. You're seeing it happen in Colombia now, and it's just disarmed people getting bulldozed by the state. Venezuela, another one. No one's able to stand up and fight the government because the first thing a powerful government does is disarm the people. Because that's the only way to ensure that you're able to do these things. And you can point to examples, yes, where countries are effectively disarmed, Western countries, but I think that their slide into tyranny and chaos is just happening slower. That's the only difference. And look at the UK, and they've lost free speech rights. They've lost free movement rights. They've lost free assembly rights. Every year they're losing more rights. And they can't fight back. They can't do shit. And people are literally going to jail in the UK for making offensive jokes, are facing jail time. And now they have a protest law where you can go to jail for just vague reasons, for being vaguely involved in a seditious protest or something. So it's like, it's happening. It's slower. That's the only difference. The only countries that are not able to push these horrific laws are ones where the civilians own some firepower. Because eventually the government will push too far and people will push back. So getting rid of guns does not solve mass shootings. Getting rid of guns just means that mass shootings are going to be perpetrated by the government against people. We need to focus on fixing our communities and local ground up development. And I mean, the government's not going to do it. They've proven that time and again. They're too busy infighting. So let's do it ourselves. Let's get out there and try to make a difference and try to make the world around you better and try to improve the lives of people around you. Because that's all we can really do. You can't, pick up every bullied kid and turn their life around. But if you see a kid getting bullied, or you see injustice, or you see things that are wrong, it's time to start taking action and standing up for what is right, helping people, and building a better community. And by doing that, we can all move forward, because the government's not going to save us. It's never going to step in and save us. The only ones that can save us is us. And the only way we can do that is working together and uniting and trying to make the world that we all want, but that none of us seems to want to take a step toward. So just do some good. Make a small difference where you can. And just these little things you never know, can set things off down the right path instead of the wrong path, It's like the butterfly effect. The butterfly effect, could be used for evil. You kind of see maybe you shove a guy out of the way and he has a bad day and misses his train, and then his wife yells at him, and that typical slide down into the next thing you know, he's bringing a handgun to the office and shooting his boss. The way you hold the door for the guy, and then he catches his train on time, and he gets a seat and has a comfortable train ride and goes home and hugs his wife, and things move on. It's just the little tiny things can you never know, can make a huge difference. And little tiny acts of meanness or cruelness or evil, however small, maybe impact somebody down the line that you don't see in a way that is horrible. So reverse it. Let's all try to make a positive difference and stop trying to police one another and tell one another what we can and cannot do and cannot own, and instead let's just help each other out. I don't know. I'm just a fucking loser sitting at home working my 9 to 5 and making shitty videos, but what do I know? I'm not an expert. Take me out and prove me wrong, but happy to discuss. I don't know. If you have some better options, I can go into details, but it's not a policy debate. I think main thing is keep the people armed, able to defend themselves against the government, and focus on rebuilding our communities and helping one another, and just focus on what's immediately around you and try to make it a bit better. That's all I can say. Thanks for listening. This is the Not a Person podcast, episode 3 technically. I'm not really doing this in a serious way, so this is the most serious sign off I'll probably do. Thanks for listening, and I will catch you next time.